The pacing and the scares of this movie were very, very good.
Oh my God!
Hey, what's up guys? It's Josh here. I just want to do a little movie review today on my favorite Paranormal Activity movie up to this point, and that is The Marked Ones. Now, I watched the first Paranormal Activity in theaters. I had watched horror movies up to that point. I think I had watched Saw and Hostel, but I didn't really watch any older style horror movies, so I wasn't really familiar with the tropes or how things are. So when I watched the first Paranormal Activity, I really, really liked it. After the second, third, and fourth came out, seeing other movies like Insidious and The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity just wasn't as impressive as it first was with that found footage style. And all the Paranormal Activities, they don't really give you that much information. They have a really, really slow build, and then this big thing at the end that's not really explained that well. I think that turns some people off. This one was my favorite from the Paranormal Activities, and this one is the one that I remember. It's the one that I'll go back, and this is the one that I actually probably will own if I was going to own any Paranormal Activity, because this personally is my favorite. So this one is a found footage style movie that revolves around an 18-year-old Mexican kid, his best friend, and his girlfriend. You know that somebody below him is a little bit weird. They show you that in the first couple minutes, so that's kind of like the basic setup. This guy lives in an apartment. Somebody below him's weird. He's 18, just graduating high school, all that good stuff. So let's jump into the pros of this movie. The pros is that it's very different. Everything that it does different, I almost like. The first Paranormal Activities, I think, was based on a witch coven, and all the witches were mainly white, so it's white girls the whole story, and then all of a sudden this movie, it's about an 18-year-old Mexican kid. It's like, wow, that's just so different and so fresh to jump into it and have it pull off. The characters in this are probably the most likable out of all the Paranormal Activities. I would say every character I thought was likable, even the little characters like his dad or other people. Everybody was overall likable in this movie, and that is good acting and good directing in my opinion. It's very different, but it still ties into the original. This movie really is for people who are fans of Paranormal Activity. It really ends up tying into everything you've seen before, while at the same time, at the very beginning, it kind of seems like it's a different movie, like they're gonna go way different, but at the same time, it ends up tying perfectly into everything that you've seen before. The pacing and the scares of this movie were very, very good. There is a lot of jump scares in this movie. That is kind of where it goes. They happen as the movie progresses, so it's like you get a new jump scare as the movie is moving along, and you're not going to go back to the originals. Like, the jump scares kind of have a nice evolution, and when you're watching something, that's what it's trying to do, is make you jump scare, at least a little bit. Almost everything is, so I understand if you don't like that, but I think the way they executed in this was good. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, that was so dumb of a jump scare. It's like, okay, that was a jump scare, but it really wasn't bad, and the movie moves along good. The kind of like paranormal stuff that happens is a lot more than I remember. I remember 2 scenes of this movie, and both the scenes were done about halfway through, so I'm like, oh man, I don't even remember how this movie is gonna end because I just rewatched it. But this movie has a lot of different style scare gimmicks and a lot of different kinds of CGI. When the movie starts off, it kind of feels like it's going to be a very cheap movie, or they're going to be a very low budget movie. For the very first Paranormal Activity, there was very little CGI in the very first movie up until the end point. I would say they use the CGI in this perfectly. They use it just enough to where it really doesn't feel like they have a low budget. I liked almost all the stuff that they did. The CGI really helps it make it feel like it's not that much of a cheap movie. All the CGI looks good, and there's probably 10 scenes where it's used, so it's used just enough. Those are my pros. I really like the pacing. I really like the scares. I really like the likable characters. I really liked how it was very different, super different, but they pulled it off, and it still comes around to the original movie. So let's jump into the cons. Now, I feel like found footage, that's kind of like a con. Some people don't really like it. It was new back in the day, and now to be a Paranormal Activity movie, you almost have to keep doing the found footage style stuff. So for some people, I understand that's a turn off. This one pulls it off really, really well, so I don't have any problems with it. A lot of jump scares. It is a heavy jump scare movie. Like I was saying in my pros, I don't personally mind them, but if you're somebody who really doesn't like jump scares, you find them cheap, you're gonna have a lot of them in this movie, and this movie is very good at getting those jump scares across, so they'll probably get you to jump about something stupid. It's just gonna happen. So the ending scene was something I never really saw coming. It was a very interesting way to end it. It kind of ties into the original Paranormal Activity. I don't really want to get into what happens because I recommend that you watch this movie, but it was just a little weird. It was really good, but then it was kind of like, I'm kind of like torn on the ending because they show you something you've seen before, and then it would be interesting if they put an extra twist on it. I kind of have mixed feelings about the very, very end, but I do appreciate that it was out of the box. They were trying to do something different, and it does tie into the original. And the only other con for me is that it was a tiny bit slow at times. Now, barely. I would say if I was going to edit this movie, I would take out maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes. If something's going to scare a girl in like a minute, they'll just leave the camera and watch the girl doing nothing for a minute. So it's kind of just feels like I really wish I wasn't looking at nothing for a minute, and it wasn't too bad. I would say that there was never really a point where 2 or 3 minutes passed and it was all a waste of time. I would say this is a definite watch in my opinion. I would say I would personally own it just because this is my favorite of the Paranormal Activities. I think it has very good scares. And if I was going to show horror movies to newer people, this one is really one that I like. And for a found footage style one with a lot of jump scares, this is probably one of the better movies out there for sure. And if you appreciate some good jump scares, this one 100% is for you. I think it's PG-13, but man, did they pull off the jump scares and all the stuff just perfectly. But let me know what you think of Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. Let me know what your favorite Paranormal Activity is down below. Again, I have a personal tie to these movies, although I don't think they're very good anymore. This is my favorite of them. I really don't have a desire to rewatch the original 4 just because of, you know, all the great horror movies that I've seen now, and just because I kind of have an idea what's going to happen. It's going to be very slow. This one is one of my favorites. I definitely do recommend that you watch it. So let me know what you think of this review. Let me know what you think of Paranormal Activity. Let me know what movie I should review next. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and I couldn't do it without any of you guys. So you guys are the best. I'm having a great day out here. Hopefully having a great day at home. See you all in the next video. Peace.